Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Let's take a look at the headlines. The new Minister of Justice says fiscal year 2013 will see the implementation of measures to reduce the backlog of cases in the nation's courthouses. Energy Minister says a change in marketing strategies has the potential to make Trinidad and Tobago a major player in the exportation of LNG globally. And Amerindians are being assured that government will do all that it can to preserve, respect and protect Amerindian heritage in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for joining us. The new Minister of Justice, Chrislyn Moore, says fiscal year 2013 will see the implementation of measures seeking to reduce the backlog of cases in the nation's courthouses. This as she gave her maiden presentation as a senator, where she notes the establishing of a drug court and new judiciary houses across the nation will take place.
In her maiden address to the Senate, newly appointed Justice Minister Chrislyn Moore says the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Act 2011 will ease the backlog of cases at the magistrates' courts. Her comments came moments after she took the oath of a senator in the House. However, she notes before passage of this act takes place, consultations with various stakeholders involved in its day-to-day operation will take place.
The Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Act 2012 seeks to ensure that the system will become more efficient and more effective. Once proclaimed in its entirety, it will abolish the system of preliminary inquiry and replace it with sufficiency hearings. This sufficiency hearing will be conducted by a criminal master in the High Court, where written evidence will be submitted to the criminal master, who will decide whether or not there's a prima facie case against the accused. This provision will allow for a committal for trial by the judge and the jury within a 3-month time frame.
The minister says plans to create a DNA bank as a forensic science center are on the cards. She also anticipates the center will be transformed into being more efficient through the implementation of software called the Laboratory Integrated Management System, LIMS.
Government has approved the procurement of a more efficient system for the management of the flow of evidence at the center, called the Laboratory Integrated Management System, or LIMS. This is a software-based laboratory system that offers a set of key features to support a laboratory's operation. These features, which include workflow, data tracking support, and smart data exchange interfaces, are aimed at optimizing laboratory operations.
Outlining the achievements of her ministry in the past fiscal year, she highlights the widening of eligibility for legal aid to all citizens, regardless of their disposable income available.
Citizens with a maximum disposable capital of $20,000 up from $5,000 and a maximum disposable income of $36,000 up from $7,000 can now receive legal representation. Legal advice remains a right of every citizen, regardless of the size of their disposable income or disposable capital. This widened access ensures that those who need legal representation but cannot afford it can beyond a doubt access the court system in both criminal and civil matters. In so doing, this government has preserved and guaranteed the constitutional right of all our citizens to legal counsel, to the protection of the law, and to equality before the law.
She says a duty counsel scheme will be established to cater to the needs of the more vulnerable in society, such as youth, thus providing immediate access to legal representation and advice from the moment detained.
For the first time ever in Trinidad and Tobago, of a duty counsel scheme. This scheme caters to some of the more vulnerable in our society, where legal aid and advice is unavailable. I'm speaking here of juveniles. From the moment they are detained on suspicion of having committed an offense, they are entitled to representation under the Duty Counsel scheme. This facility is also available to adults who are detained on suspicion of having committed a capital offense, as well as certain other indictable offenses. Mr. Presiding Officer, of the 55 $1,872,000 allocated to the Ministry of Justice for developmental programs for fiscal 2013. $850,000 has been allocated for the implementation of the Duty Council scheme.
The new minister also summarized plans to establish courthouses in rural districts, bringing the administration of justice closer to home for citizens.
The Ministry of Justice has begun work to construct judicial centers across Trinidad and Tobago. More specifically, the courts will be placed in Tobago, Trin City, Sandy Grande, Pinal Siparia, and Carsonfield. Each judicial center, where appropriate, will typically house 4 magistrates' courts and 4 high courts, including adjunct services such as probation and legal aid. The Ministry of Justice expects to turn sod for each of these courts during this fiscal year. $7 million has been allocated to the commencement of this project for fiscal 2013.
Also on the ministry's agenda is legislation which will enable the establishment of a drug court aimed at rehabilitating drug addicts, and persons sentenced to 6 years and under will be eligible for parole.
Early release is automatic based upon the acquisition of the requisite number of points awarded due to good behavior. There is also a lack of post-release supervision. While the appropriate authorities are working to enhance and reform the current remission criteria, it should be noted that as an early release mechanism, only those offenders serving a sentence of 6 years or less are eligible for remission. The Ministry of Justice is therefore proposing that offenders serving time in excess of 6 years may also be eligible for parole.
In addition to these proposed changes, Minister Moore's amendments are also being put forward towards other pieces of legislation, including the Jury Act. She reiterated her ministry's commitment to consultations with all stakeholders for feedback.
Energy Minister, the Honourable Kevin Ramnarine, says a change in marketing strategies has the potential to make Trinidad and Tobago a major player in the exportation of LNG globally. In his contribution to the Senate on the budget package 2012-2013, the minister says under the new arrangement, local gas company NGC was successful in getting a higher price for the exported commodity.
Over $20 million in revenue has been derived from the sale of liquid natural gas to international companies. Making his presentation, the minister highlights it was the natural gas company NGC that was responsible for the sale, and attributes the sale to new marketing arrangements engaged by the locally owned gas company.
A calculation on what would have been earned had this cargo been marketed under the previous arrangement points to that, says that we would have gotten a price of around $1.60 per MMBTU. That is $4.3 million. Therefore, by making this very bold and strategic move, the NGC was able to gain over $20 million US, Madam Vice President, in incremental revenue on one cargo.
However, the minister notes that for years, this country endured millions of dollars in losses due to the sale of LNG by outsourcing marketing needs, something he says has changed with the new marketing strategy implemented by NGC.
It is also the learning that is taking place at the NGC, because the young men and women at the NGC, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, are now beginning to learn the LNG marketing business. And as we look around all our contracts now, Madam Vice President, Minister's share of natural gas, we are seeing opportunities now to hive out even more cargoes. So Trinidad and Tobago could become a major player in the marketing of LNG globally, and that I put on the table as a significant achievement of this administration.
He adds that over 19 sites stood to be explored for both oil and natural gas in the upcoming fiscal year 2013. Fiscal
2013, we expect that 19 exploration wells will be drilled. Now, being a person who keeps a lot of data, which is obvious, I had to go and look at my files to see when last this country had 19 exploration wells being drilled in 1 year. And my data set, Madam Vice President, unfortunately only went back to 2000. But there was no year that we drilled that amount of wells. So there is an unprecedented level of activity
Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
More news after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Government is placing emphasis on innovation, which it hopes will lead to greater local investment. This, at least, is the intention of the Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development, Dr. The Honorable Bu Tiwari.
The Business Development Company of Trinidad and Tobago has provided funding to some 50 persons through an innovation facility set up by this government. This was revealed by Dr. Tiwari while speaking at a breakfast meeting hosted by the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association. Dr. Tiwari believes these persons' innovative ideas may prove to be the future of business in Trinidad and Tobago or even the world.
We have established since 2010, the 2010 budget, an innovation facility. That innovation facility was not used in 2010, but in 2011 it was used. Sorry, it was not used in 2011, but in 2012 it was used. And in fact, 50 innovators were awarded opportunities funded by the Business Development Company to foster their innovations. Some of them have had direct interaction with and have seen what is possible, and some of them have the capacity for international businesses. Although they need to be nurtured, they cannot simply move from where they are into an international arena.
Minister Tiwari adds that the Caribbean Industrial Research Institute is also playing its role in developing products which will provide investment opportunities for local investors.
Kariri, which falls under the Ministry of Planning, is focused on applied research. And before the end of this year, they are going to bring forward for investment by local investors 7 products based on the agricultural sector that they have developed and test marketed and that are ready to go as business opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago.
Dr. Tiwari is meanwhile lamenting the issues affecting productivity in the workplace in Trinidad and Tobago. He says if the low levels of productivity must be addressed, first they must be identified.
First of all, there are low levels of labor productivity in the country. Secondly, they have identified high levels of high absenteeism and turnovers in employment. Thirdly, the shortage of skilled local employees in certain sectors. Fourthly, the difficulty of retaining the best employees because of the salary and compensation structure. Also, the low levels of technological innovation and low level of knowledge transfer. Now, if we're going to develop policy to take care of these things, we have to understand what the problems are.
The planning minister is urging business owners and large corporations that, as these problems have been identified, to do what they can to arrest these issues and increase productivity in Trinidad and Tobago. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
In other news, at least 1 of every 10 deportees that gets off a plane in this country possess skills that can be deemed a threat to the national security. Minister of the People and Social Development, Dr. Glenn Ramadasing, says it is important that these individuals and their skills are used for good, and that government will be providing $18 million to reintegrate these men and women, making them positive forces in society.
The Ministry of the People and Social Development is moving to revamp its social displacement unit so its capacity to treat with returning deportees is improved. At a media conference last Friday, Minister Dr. Glenn Ramadasing said while the socially displaced are made up of the poor and the homeless, another segment of their number cannot be ignored: deportees. The minister said not all deportees were criminals, and some of their number included those with specialist skills earned in foreign militaries. Head of NGO Vision on a Mission, Wayne Chance, was present and said out of every 10 returning deportees, at least 1 had such skills. 3 such men were invited to the conference to give an idea of the training these deportees would have undergone.
My skills were, of course, you train with a standard weapon, the M16 assault rifle. You also train with M60 machine gun, right, which is a deadly and powerful weapon. And you have skills with claymore mines, which it depends on which unit you belong to.
I could build bomb, I could take it apart if anything in that money I had to save my battalion, I could dismantle it.
Basically, when we're deported, we have no directions and there's no help for us.
Minister Ramadar Singh said it was critical that these skills were not contracted by criminal elements. He said this is why government must provide proper support for the deportees and institutions which interacted with them regularly. Dr. Ramadar Singh highlighted the work of Vision on a Mission in the rehabilitation of those deported. However, he said the current level of support was not enough.
Clients are sent to Vision on a Mission for a maximum of 3 months at a cost of $800 per person.
This is why he says government has approved a cabinet note that will see the formation of a new interagency unit that will supplement the work of the displacement unit. $18 million in funds has been approved for the unit, some of which the minister says has already been released. The minister says government has also approached the National Insurance Property Development Company Limited for possible sites to house a facility for deportees that will be home to 400. He also says more information about the work of the reconstituted Social Displacement Unit will be forthcoming in the future.
When we come back, Wayne Cunningham has a sport report. Match day 14 in the Blink B-Mobile National Super League produced some interesting results. So much so that the top and bottom three teams maintained their positions on the standing. But there was some movement in mid-table. Wayne Cunningham has a rundown of the weekend's results.
With 8 rounds of matches remaining, it's tight at the top of the standings in the National Super League, with just 2 points separating first from third. Match day 14 featured a top-of-the-table clash between Joe Public FC and Wassa FC. The all-Eastern encounter ended in a 1-1 draw. Ellis Diet opened the scoring for the Eastern Lions on the stroke of half-time to continue his fine form. Another informed striker, Jahan Hernandez, equalized for the Watermen in the 65th minute to keep the teams in first and second places respectively on the standings. Another Eastern-based outfit, FC Santa Rosa, suffered the heaviest defeat on the day, falling 4-1 in Tobago to Stokely Vale Football Club. Rondell Winchester got the party started for Stokely Vale with a goal in the 14th minute. That was cancelled out 5 minutes later by the prolific Ion Alain, but his heroics were short-lived as Anthony Belfort restored his team's advantage in the 27th minute to take a 2-1 half-time lead. The 2011 runners-up had to wait until the 75th minute to extend that lead, with Dominic McDougall scoring. Onasi Ford put the icing on the cake for the home team in the 90th as they jumped from 6th to 4th place on the standings. Just above them and maintaining their place in third is North Zone team Westside Superstars. They travelled to the Palaseco Velodrome only to find an outfield unfit for play. They were awarded the match and credited with 3 goals at the expense of home team Siparia Spurs. Central team Eagles United and Southerners Club Sando played to a 0-0 draw at the Manny Ramjohn Stadium in Marabella. That result kept them in the same spots on the points table, with Eagles in 7th and Sando 2 places below them in 9th. 0-0 was also the score at the Chagaramas Youth Camp, where the Defence Force hosted 1976 FC Phoenix of Tobago. The result did little for the military men as they remained second from bottom. The team from Canaan are now in 5th, switching places with their neighbours from Stokely Vale. The clash of the day was between 2 teams battling relegation. At 10th place, Real Maracas visited Beach United, who are in 12th. The home team took a 19-minute lead through Maurice Billy. Beach held that advantage until the 48th minute. That's when the well-travelled Handel Manswell equalized for Maracas. Kern Vincent and the Beach fans must have thought he had the winner when he scored in the 84th. But Ishmael Clement had other ideas when he secured a point for Maracas with a 90th minute equalizer. That score kept both teams in the danger zone. Matches continue this weekend with an interesting clash in Tobago when fourth place Phoenix hosts Westside Superstars, who are in third. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
More news after the break. The Amerindian population in Trinidad and Tobago celebrated Amerindian Heritage Day on the weekend. Amidst the week-long celebrations, the Amerindians are being assured, though, that this government will do all that it can to preserve, respect and protect the Amerindian heritage in Trinidad and Tobago.
Amerindian Heritage celebrations in Trinidad and Tobago this year is being held under the theme Recognizing the Contributions of First People. The celebrations began on Sunday and run till Saturday, 20th October. Minister of State in the Ministry of National Diversity and Social Integration, the Honorable Embar Mohini, says the government will ensure that the Amerindian people are given the recognition they deserve for the role they have played in the development of this country. He adds that they will also have the opportunity to play their role in the progression of this nation.
I would like to assure Chief Bawat Hernandez that on my own behalf, as well as on behalf of the Ministry of National Diversity and Social Integration, and the Ministry and the government of Trinidad and Tobago, we are going to do everything in our power to ensure that the First Peoples are given not only the recognition that is due to them, but they could be afforded the opportunity to play the kind of role they ought to play and they would like to play in the development of this country and in the enlightenment and forward movement of all our people.
Minister Mohini says for this to happen, however, dialogue is required and insists that his ministry will continue to hold discussions with the necessary stakeholders.
My ministry is prepared to work in partnership with the First Peoples. And this is why we told the chief that we are prepared to continue the dialogue. As a matter of fact, another meeting has already been set for Thursday. So it doesn't end here. It is not as if, well, okay, the event is finished, come back next year. No. The dialogue is going to continue.
The minister also notes the importance of the heritage being passed on to successive generations. He cites this as a reason for his ministry's efforts to ensure the heritage is passed on to young people in Trinidad and Tobago.
Our ministry will strive not only to protect the heritage, but to see in what way that heritage could be transmitted particularly to our students and to the younger ones, so that this experience could live on from generation to generation.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Thank you for joining us.